Welcome to Apopheniac. This symphony, Ixtheos Prime, will introduce you to the very numinous correlations in the history of fish symbolism. We're going to hit the water running, so hang on tight. You're likely familiar with various fish decals seen on bumpers everywhere. The origin of these is, of course, the Christian fish symbol, ichthus in Greek. Usually, all the average Christian can tell you about this symbol is that in the persecuted infancy of Christianity, Christians used the fish as a secret symbol to identify each other incognito. Upon meeting a stranger in public, a Christian would draw an arch on the ground. And if the stranger drew another arch connecting the ends on one side and crossing them on the other, the result would be a fish, confirming them both as Christians. This story may or may not be true, but we'll never know, as drawings in dirt and sand don't last as long as rock carvings, such as this one from Ephesus, Turkey. The word ichthus was used as an acronym for Jesus, Christ, God, Son, and Savior. In these Egyptian hieroglyphs, we can see two fish shapes and two scrolls. The meanings, roll of papyrus, tie up and bind together, speak to exactly what Christians did with the letters of the Greek word for fish, binding them together to make an 8-spoked wheel. And we can see in the carving from Ephesus a similar shape to the scroll of the hieroglyphs. Jesus being called the Word or Logos, and the fish or ichthus makes sense of this symbol usage in Christianity, but it's bafflingly similar to the Holy Script or hieroglyphs of Egypt. They did the same with the Alpha and Omega, as the Bible tells us that Jesus is the beginning and the end, the first and the last. And the first and last letters of the Greek alphabet symbolize this. If we combine the Alpha, Omega, and 8-spoked wheel, we get a symbol found in the Catholic Church. Note the 4 fish tails. The Greek lowercase alpha is the shape of a fish. Oddly, no one ever combined it with the Omega, as they did the capital Alpha. What that symbol would look like is beyond strange. A fish with feet, a Darwin fish, the modern symbol of evolution. Let's put this in perspective. A fish with feet, symbol of God, was scripturally canonized, its inception nurtured by cultural behavior. Yet no Christian produced it throughout roughly 2,000 years of history. Instead, it was incidentally drafted by anti-creationists, evolutionists, as an anti-Christian joke in the 1980s. Exactly what is going on here? It's not like Christians weren't up to prolific creation of acronym symbols for God's sacred names. These are just a few. And it wouldn't be off to include feet for him this way. He famously washed feet, had his feet washed, was nailed through his feet. One of his most famous symbols today is footprints in sand. He walked everywhere he went, and most poignantly, he miraculously walked on water. The rabbit hole only gets stranger with depth. The definition of the word evolve fits when paired with these hieroglyphs in Christian theology. To unfold, open out, expand, to unroll, especially of books, figuratively to make clear, to disclose, to produce, or develop, to roll. Egyptians actually had their own fish with feet hieroglyph. Its meaning was to rise or mount up. Well, the final meaning in the definition of evolve is to develop by natural processes to a higher state. These work for the rise of man and the rise of Christ. If God is the beginning and the end, then it is eternity. The theology of first and last letters actually began with Hebrews in the Phoenician alphabet. The forms those letters took on were often adopted from nature. Aleph, for example, was, at first, the shape of an ox or bull's head. You are invited to pause the video here and comment below what these images look like to you. Perhaps you see Pac-Man, maybe a heart, a bat, a mustache, an alpha, or a horseshoe. These are, in fact, parts of the anatomy of the solid hoof. The walls are very similar to the shape of a capital Omega. The frog is the shape of a capital Alpha. The bulbs are the shape of a lowercase Omega. But the soul, this Pac-Man shape, is the outlier in this 3 out of 4 match. It is not the shape of a lowercase alpha at all. It is not the shape of a fish. This is where hieroglyphs really help. Remember, the Egyptian glyph of a fish with feet means rise and mount up. Closing the gap between capital Omega's feet makes an Egyptian sign for eternity. Shen. Stack the fish-shaped alpha, tail down, above the Shen, and draw a line between them, or do the same with the Pac-Man shape in Bingo. 2 more eternity glyphs. Note, to cut the head off of the fish and put Pac-Man above it renders a glyph for the substance of the body, and dead body happens to be represented by yet another fish glyph. Is it possible that all of this theological alphabet symbol complex originated with the anatomy of the solid hoof? Might there be conscious intent behind these correlations, or is it all just coincidence? Tell us what you think in the comments. Now we've only scratched the surface of this fishy dance of symbol and meaning. You are invited to follow along as Apopheniac presents much more wild, in-depth content on the history of fish symbolism.